Correct. For you, probably we're very much in the role a lot of us are in as comic book fans, where we think just you've got a great idea, but how do you get from point A to point B, which is what this panel is all about. So if you guys could start talking about maybe where your ideas came from and how you got started with how I make this idea I've got in my head something that's in paper, digital media. How do you get it out there? So who wants to go first? Someone jump in.
There you go.
Let's wrestle.
Knife fight.
Battle Royale.
Basically, for me, it kind of became like a write what you know type thing. For a long time I had played with like doing superhero comics or this and that, the other thing, and then I didn't really know what it was like to, you don't really know what it's like to be a superhero or this or that. I noticed like to have a crappy job at a mall and have a lot of cool friends to hang out with. So that's basically what my comic became. I use a lot of real life events that actually happened in my life, and of course I embellish on them. It'll make them a lot more funnier than they actually were. So for me, it just all came from experiences, and just started writing stuff down. And I work primarily digitally, so I do everything on the computer and distribute it on the internet. That's how I get my stuff mostly done.
Swan.
Okay, so I've been drawing forever and ever, and I moved home after college and was just kind of doing art and working and doing art in the area. And it happened that I was showing my sketches to Jared one day, and he's like, "Hey, I really like these characters. I want to do something with them." And he just kind of jotted down a quick story, and we kind of just started to collaborate together because I can't write to save my life, and kind of worked that. And he'd encourage me to keep doing stuff and give me an actual deadline to work off of and a place to go with the art. So I had a specific goal in mind, and at the time it worked out. I was working at a printing place and kind of just utilized that and was able to take the work that I was doing right there and print it at the place I was working full-time at, so it worked out. But it was definitely finding someone who was interested enough to write for my characters and write for my art and encourage me to keep doing what I was doing and not just stuff my sketches back into my backpack and ignore them. But yeah, it's kind of just worked from there. It was a wacky one day when I just happened to see sketches in my book and encouraged me to keep it on.
Well, I'm an art teacher, and that's my day job. And I encourage my students to find something creative to do in their lives that will be satisfying. I don't have anything against money. I mean, money is great, but if you want to get rich, you might want to do something else. But I just love to draw. I love to make stories in comics form. I love to read comics, and I started noticing that things that happened to me, I could see it in my mind as a comic. And the cool thing about comics is anybody who can go to Staples and get 4 sheets of paper can make a comic. And I say, if you enjoy doing it, go for it. If for whatever reason, even just to share with friends or whatever, and if the quality is there, I mean, the readership will grow, So just think, sometimes it's things that happen to me, sometimes it's just something that, even when I'm reading a book, it doesn't matter what book it is, I can see it in my mind as a comic. And sometimes that will just trigger something, I just have to draw a certain scene or something.
My idea just comes from reading and going to movies, and I've always loved adventure sagas, and I just wanted to create my own. So I sat down one day and wrote it out, and I got issue 2 out now. That's what you guys can see, my adventure.
Is that definitely something you do because you really like the medium, or you really have something you want to say, you get it up? And I think sometimes we're our own worst enemies because there's an audience for it.
Yeah.
But in this day and age with the internet, there's an audience for everything. And I think that's one of the big things you want people to walk away from is if you've got an idea, take the time to put it down on paper and get it out there, because there is an audience for it. You might have to engage social media or what have you, but there's definitely ways to engage with people. So I want to open up, make this a lot more interactive than even more just a talking heads kind of panel. So, because people obviously have a lot of questions about how you get started. Do you guys have questions you want to ask these guys that you want to know about how can you get started or how you get going? This is
They're just here to listen.
Oh,
there's-
I just now. Oh, God, look at him. Get started. Park the pump.
Yeah. I'm sure you guys are, as artists, you're bombarded with ideas. How do you know which ideas are worth developing?
Great question.
Okay, I'll go.
I'm
I'm probably not the best person to even ask this because I have a well of ideas that I have set aside that I plan on getting to something. But there's always going to be one idea that sticks out to me that really speaks to you, and that's the one that you want to go with because that's the one you're going to be most motivated to keep doing. And that's, you don't want to start something and then just have it fall apart or just lose interest in doing it. So pick that one thing that you know is going to speak to you and go with that.
I draw all the time and I'm constantly coming up with stuff that sounds really great in the moment. You know, often when I've been drinking, I'm like, that's fantastic. It's not actually the case when I start rolling. I'm like, what are you thinking? But what I love about collaborating is that I can run these crazy ideas past somebody else and they can be like, yeah, that sounds great. Or, in addition they say, hey, this is what I want to do for this page. No, that sounds terrible. I don't think that's a good idea at all. And, stuff that we would talk about and then come back to, it was definitely saying the ideas out loud and forming them that way and, getting just a little bit of feedback on them just from a close group of people. Said, hey, if I did this, with these characters, would you enjoy that? Would that be something you'd even like to see, And if they respond in a positive way, then I get more excited about it and it's that much more fun to create. And so it was definitely just sending out feelers and maybe not telling them the whole idea, but just saying, hey, if we did something like this, would you have any interest in that? And then kind of, once you found that idea, like you said, the one that's going to really inspire you running with it. And it makes it easy. It almost, you keep getting more excited as things work out or as you find out new things.
Yeah, I have a sketchbook where it's just a list. Every time I get an idea, I think it would be a good idea to jot it down. And I have a rule for myself that every day I'm going to draw for at least 15 minutes. Because then you don't have those days where you didn't draw at all. And usually if you sit down for 15 minutes, it can turn into a little bit more time. But if you say, I don't have 2 hours, so I'm not going to draw. So my rule is I'm going to draw for 15 minutes and it's going to be whatever I want to draw. There's got to be something that, so I'll look at my list and I'll just choose the best idea I have, or what I think is the best idea for that day. So it's kind of neat to share online. I've been putting things on Facebook and just seeing that this one got likes, like 10 of them, instantly, and the other one kind of fell flat. So you kind of start knowing, how people are responding to it in the comments. And you're not going to make any money, but it is gratifying to make a comic and have someone read it. And, if they want to, they can have the permanency of it by buying it, or, it's still nice, in my opinion, to share it and get feedback.
I like likes. They help a lot.
Yeah.
Somebody likes it.
Mine is like a combo of all these guys. I get ideas all day, but then one started talking to me repeatedly. Then I would bounce it off people, and then now it feels like Great Battles is making itself. I'm just like a conduit it's coming through. So it feels good to have something like that just write itself out.
Now, do all of you use social media to promote your work?
Yeah.
Primarily Facebook and Twitter, or just Facebook?
I use Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and I found that I'm actually getting a lot of newer fans through Instagram than through the other two, which I'm surprised at, but I'm running with it.
Yeah, I bombard all of my Facebook friends with it constantly, but I do Tumblr a lot, and just by drawing things that I would want to look for on Tumblr, like Sailor Moon, and I tag Sailor Moon. So people who don't know me, don't know my art at all, do a search tag for Sailor Moon, and they find my picture and they like it and they share it. And I'm able to see, you know, on my blogger where I'm getting people from Germany who are looking at my stuff, and that's really neat that there's an audience for that for people who don't know me and, you know, my friends who I force to look at my art.
You're my friend, so
You
you have to
You have to
You
look.
like it, right?
Right?
I use Facebook and I have a blog, and Blogger is run by Google. So if I type up a little description of that comic, say if I draw a comic of Van Gogh, and then I have a written description, if anybody searches Van Gogh comic anywhere, mine comes right to the top. Because Google, it's a great way, I haven't figured out a way to make money yet. It's a great way to have your thing be the first, you know, on the list, because Google is, you know, right now it's very powerful.
I use a little bit of social media, but I like going to shops too and meeting people. I'm pretty old school that way, which to my detriment, but I'm learning new technology.
Well, it's another kind of social networking, it's just it's not digital social.
Right, yeah, and also all the shops that I have a book on the shelf, I went in and met the owner or the buyer, and that has gotten me further than any social media. So.
Well, you talked about doing things like drawing Sailor Moon. Do you guys ever do stuff like you draw characters that people might be searching for to get them to look at your art so they can look at your other stuff that you're drawing?
That's a good idea.
So it's also good because if you're happy with the way it turns out, you turn it into a print, you bring it to a show, and you sell it at the show.
Yep.
So it's a very good way to generate both money and fans.
And it's fun too. I mean, for me, you know, growing up, especially with Sailor Moon, I mean, I cut my teeth on it on Cartoon Network after school, and I love drawing it, and it's exciting for me now, you know, back in the days where I'd sit there and I would draw the characters over and over and over again, to now get to a point where I can draw them and they're in my style, so they're, you know, they definitely have a part of me using them, but it's paying homage to something that inspired me and, you know, shaped the way I draw, so I think that's pretty neat.
I think it's true that somebody once said, what kind of comic should you make? Make the kind of comic you wish there were more of. And so we do have those things that, oh man, this is so awesome, I wish there was more stuff like that. And for myself, I grew up on Mad Magazine and Sergio Aragone's Brew. So as a kid, I copied everything I could find and kind of absorbed, I think, some of his style and humor. So I think sometimes, you know, copying a character or whatever, copying an artist, you know, at some point you should stop and move on. You know, and we do have influences and things that we
You learn to sign their name the same way.